Ladies and gentlemen, this is a chess YouTube channel. On this channel, I try to provide an educational and entertaining experience for all of you. I try to cover top chess dramas and gossip and contextualize things and provide you news and updates. I have a massive amount of purely instructional content, and I have a pretty massive amount of entertaining chess content with some sprinkles of education. Today, I have something for you, which is nonsense. Pure nonsense. Normally, I cover ridiculous games like this on this channel, and they are played by 500s, 400s, 300s. I've even covered 100 ELO chess. I've covered chess that's not even possible. ChatGPT. Today's game was played by two top 10, top 15 players in the world. Without further ado, let's begin. This is how to defeat a top player by only using your pawns. Just pawns. You know, you're taught in all these lessons, knights, bishops, everything. This game was played yesterday in a tournament in St. Louis, which is a city in America that literally anybody outside of America will not only have never heard of, you probably will never visit it, and it's meaningless to you. But it is quickly becoming the hub of top-level chess here in the United States. And there's a tournament there called the Singfield Cup. The player with the white pieces is Jan Nepomniachtchi, two-time challenger for the World Championship, very, very strong player, and Anish Giri, who is probably the funniest chess grandmaster. That's his main title. D4, knight f6, c4, e6. Nowadays, all top players are playing knight f6, e6. They have almost completely abandoned the King's Indian defense with g6. They are playing this because their goal is to meet knight to c3 with bishop to b4, which is the Nimzo-Indian defense, which is also why many top players now play knight f3 and completely avoid all of this. Jan Nepomniachtchi does not shy away. He plays knight to c3, and now black really needs to play bishop to b4, or else white will take over the entirety of the center. And just so you understand, this position is simply not great for black. White can even play 4 pawns if they want. So bishop to b4. e3. Completely normal stuff. Black can choose to already attack the center, or black can choose to castle. He opts to castle. It is the most flexible move. And now white has many different setups. They include usually moving the knight or the bishop. Nowadays, one trendy move is a3. a3, and this is where the movement of the pawns begins. Okay? The opening has been played. White plays a pawn move, attacking the bishop. Basically, what you are doing here is calling black's bluff. Do you really want to take my knight? Don't you know that this is considered the bishop pair advantage? Yes. Now, what's funny is the engine, the computer you see there on the left side of your screen, it microscopically prefers black. It thinks this approach by white at low depth of analysis is stupid because I was going to take the knight anyway. So you could have just developed, and at some point I would have had to go here. Well, a3 is like, no, take now, and now black, you choose a setup. Now, the way white likes to play this is white likes to play bishop to d3, and then after bishop d3, likes to expand in the center with the pawns. Mr. Giri here can choose to play c5, which is a very common blockading mechanism. Also, that opens up the queen to put some pressure on the pawn, which was just created as a weakness in that recent exchange. I have faced this move before. But Anish plays d6, and d6 is simply very flexible. He's not telling you yet which pawn move, he wants to play to fight back for the center. Now, some of you may be wondering, why is d5 not a good move? Well, the thing is, the person who prefers to open up the position and make some pawn trades is the guy with the 2 bishops, And historically, this variation here has been proven to be a little bit good for white. I mean, white gets a lot of activity, so black is trying to keep the position closed. Now, from this point forward, Jan Nepomniachtchi proceeds to play like a 500 ELO player on chess.com who just downloaded the app, and yet simultaneously plays like a 2,767. There is a phenomenon for this, where the absolute lowest level at some point mirrors the absolute highest level. I don't know if it's like the point of diminishing return, something along that. That's not exactly the point of diminishing return. I know the point of diminishing returns when you get to a point, right, and then from there you can't really go up anymore. But my point being, if I didn't tell you who was playing this game, you'd be shocked. So, first things first. If I asked you here, play a move for white, what's a natural move? You know what you would say? You would say knight to f3 and bishop to d3. And if you said anything else, I would slap you. Okay? Because you're not supposed to play anything else. I mean, what else can you play? Don't put the queen back. What's wrong with you? Oh, Hikaru plays the pawn. I don't care what he does. Okay, you're 400. Stop it. Okay, well, Jan Nepomniachtchi plays f3. Let me tell you something right now. If you play f3 in your games, I would stop coaching you. If I had a student who back in the day in this position would play pawn to f3, I would yell at them. I would tell their parents that they need to take away their electronics. Okay? What is this move? Well, I'll tell you what it is. He wants to advance the pawns. Now, Giri here plays knight c6. Because, obviously, right, you want to attack in the center. Now, another move black has here is e5. That's probably the best move because it opens up the bishop. Also, you can prepare to open up the center. After knight c6, now Nepo plays e4. Okay, the move pawn to e4 obviously follows this move. And yet, white has played 8 moves and every piece is on the starting squares. Now, a lot of you will be inspired after these games, after watching this, to play like this yourselves. Don't. Okay? Giri now plays queen e8. I don't really understand queen e8. I mean, I think he played queen to e8 because he remembered something in his mind where against this kind of a formation, queen e8 is good, then knight to a5 putting pressure on this pawn, then the bishop comes putting pressure on this pawn, then the queen goes where the knight was. So queen e8 is designed as part of a long-term plan. However, white hasn't really committed anything, so I still wonder if e5 is the way to go. And then if d5, well, then you go here, and now you can really start to do some stuff here. You also have a sacrifice in queen h4. But clearly, Anish had something in mind when he played queen e8. He wanted to go here, 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 and here, and try to take this pawn. Now Jan Nepomniachtchi plays something that makes me physically sick to my stomach. He plays h4. Craziest part about this move is he spent 15 minutes on it. He spent 15 minutes on this move. Now, Jan is either the most patient bluffer in the world, meaning he knew the move h4. He knew it. He just pretended to make it up at the board, which would have been really crazy to do. Or he just decided, today, I'm going to go bananas. I'm going to play h4. Now, h4 makes some sense. The point is that you want to, obviously, your rook is still there, and there's a king here, so... the best move now for black is to immediately play knight to h5. Knight h5 is not trying to block the pawn attack. No, it's trying to hop in on the dark squares and neuter white's position. The thing is, if you trade off white's pieces, white has no attack. Okay, he has this formation, and we can call this the creepy crawly, okay? You're playing the creepy crawly. Boop, 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 one square each. But knight h5, and I really wonder what he was going to do. Maybe he was going to play king f2, which is insanity, but then f5. I mean, you have a rook and a king. You've got to open up the position when you have a rook and a king opposite each other like this. And the same thing in the center of the board. You want to open up the center when you're seeing that the opponent's king is there. Now, for reasons I can't quite explain, Anish goes b6. I mean, Anish thinks for 7 minutes here. He decides, like, Jan is an idiot, and he just plays b6. He completely does not acknowledge anything that's happening over here. Right? h4, he's like, h4, all right, Jan is the crazy homeless guy in the train station who's screaming at me. In San Francisco, they would be trying to, stab you. But in other places, I was in Madrid. Homelessness is a very serious issue that should be tackled by every major metropolitan city in its own fashion. Let's put that aside. I was in San Francisco, right, a couple of years ago. My life was basically put in danger. But I was in Madrid, and I watched a homeless guy make fun of another guy's clothes. He was just laughing at him in Spanish. I was like, what a culture shift. Dude's just like, he fell on hard times. He's living on the street, and he's still making fun of people. Maybe people are just generally happier in Spain. It must be all the jamón ibérico. I don't know. Anyway, that's an aside. And it is what it is, right? What was my point? Right. My point was that Anish was treating Nepo as like, okay, I'm just going to ignore him. Well, Jan plays h5. Boys and girls, what is this? What is this garbage? Like, I have opening courses, why would you spend money on opening courses when you're like, well, he could just play h4, h5? The thing is, again, when they do it, they got like deep-rooted ideas. If you do it, I'm not so sure it's going to go so well. Anish plays bishop a6. So Anish basically is like, I don't think you have anything. h4, h5, bishop a6. Now, the next move is really, really gangster. So again, Anish played all these moves because he's going to go knight a5, queen c6, and take this pawn, right? So a guy just went h4, h5, right? If I ask you what's the next, obviously h6. Yeah, I'm not sure you can predict Jan Nepomniachtchi's next move. He goes rook a2. Rook a2 is wild stuff, man. Rook a2 is crazy. Dude's just straight up moving his pawns in his. It looks like you're playing. Looks like somebody pulled you aside before the game and said you must play like this or else. Like, it looks like you were threatened. You're under duress or something. I don't know. But the idea of rook a2 is you cleared all of this, and you're gonna go g4 and rook g2. People have played like this. Anish plays knight a5 because that's been the plan, and now white simply cannot protect the pawn on c4 because he did not do anything in his power to protect the pawn on c4. But in a lot of these Nimzo-Indian positions with the double pawns on c4, c3, white actually does lose this pawn, and it doesn't really matter. So this is kind of the lesson here. In many, many, many positions in the Nimzo-Indian, you can lose the pawn on c4 and you can be completely okay. Now we have g4. Guys, I'm telling you, this is bananas. This is the 12th move of the game. And Nepo is just only going to use his pawns. Anish plays queen c6. See, he spends 20 minutes now because I think at this point it's setting in like, oh dear, I really might get brutalized. And if I lose a game to a guy that played like this, oh, it's bad. It's real bad, So he plays queen c6. Now, the reason he thought is because I'm assuming he was trying to capture. But the thing is, after the knight arrives, the knight has no forward momentum. The rook still goes to g2. You still have to deal with the attack. White is attacking you without touching any of his pieces. And the fact that it's nearly equal is just unbelievable. So queen c6, rook g2, obviously. By the way, look at Nepo. Nepo is blitzing all his moves. He played h4, and since then he has not thought. Rook a2, g4, rook g2. He straight up is not thinking. The guy is playing like this against you. What are you supposed to do? So now you finally take on c4, because that's what you've been trying to accomplish. Bishop c4, Jan takes on c4 pretty quickly. Queen c4. Finally, we develop a piece. Now, again, you can't just move your pawns. You do have to protect this pawn. So he finally moves a piece, 15 moves into the game, but he did all of this with just his pawns. And guess what? White has a very simple game plan, g5. And that, now, what I don't understand is what if you play knight to d7? How on earth is this attack going to succeed? How is it going to succeed? Where is the attack? Well, what the computer says to do here is to play knight to b3. After bishop e3, it recommends playing f5, just trying to break out. After en passant, knight takes f6, it thinks that black is more or less okay. I mean, white has taken a substantial risk playing like this. Soon you may need to sacrifice some material. You may need to give up a second pawn. Black has to play king f8. Black has to get really dirty with you in this position. Really dirty, but he has to do it like this. Anish Giri plays e5. So Anish spends another 20 minutes. He finally plays e5 and says, I don't get it. I don't understand where the attack is. Well, g6. So Jan completely ignores this. He doesn't play bishop e3. He doesn't play bishop b2 to play on the diagonal. He goes in, which is a crazy move. Absolutely crazy. There is a line here that, for example, if you try to close the position, I take GH and queen c1. King g7, g takes f7, discover check, king f7, queen h6, king e8, rook g7. The threat is here and mate. Or here and mate everywhere. The only move here is king d8, queen h7, queen b5. And it's still not even clear when the game is going to end. Like, I still have rook g1. I can still continue the attack. So Giri thinks and he plays fg. He obviously was expecting g6, and he meets it with this move because what could possibly be more natural than opening up your rook to the opponent's side of the board? hg. Now the position is back to equal. One guy literally put his rooks like this and just launched a bunch of pawns forward, and apparently the position is equal. I mean, the white queen can't even enter the game. There's no way to enter the game. Anish now takes on f3. I mean, you talk about who's attacking who? gh7 and king h8. And the attack is over. Black is using white's pawn as an umbrella. He's simply hiding underneath it. You got nothing on g7. And, you know, rook g1 is obviously a very natural move. Black plays rook f7. But suddenly, everything becomes quite clear. Despite all the pieces being on the home rank, basically, white's attack is actually a lot more powerful than it looks. And here, on the 21st move of the game, after basically using pawns the entire game, Jan Nepomniachtchi moved his bishop for the first time, and he gave it up! This move is a threat to take on g7. Black has absolutely no choice. He must accept the sacrifice. And of course, this was a brilliant move. Pawn takes h6. Rook g8 check. Oops. You cannot take me, because I take with this pawn, and it's mate. So king takes h7, rook takes a8. Nepo used the bishop sacrifice to win the rook in the corner. And yet, is he even up material? No, he has 4 pawns, and black has 6. So it's knight and 2 pawns for a rook. The material is equal. Yeah, the king is kind of stuck, but nobody can attack the king. I mean, you know, you are very far away from playing a move like rook g8 and rook h8. So now Giri plays knight f6, and it's a mistake. He wanted to stop rook g8, and he wanted to counterattack. The move he had to play was something like knight to b3 again, just patrolling, not allowing the queen to enter the game. He was obviously probably worried about things like rook g8. I mean, it's not easy. Also, rook c8 with pressure. I mean, it's really not an easy position. He plays knight to f6. And the move that he misses here is pawn takes e5. He saw the move, but I think he thought he had knight takes e4. With the simple idea to quickly gain counterplay on white, knight b3, all the pieces swarm in. He probably calculated rook g8. At which point, you know, rook h8 and the king gets hunted out. Here, king g7, rook g8. He has to calculate. I think you have to go to g6, and then here you have to block with the rook. That is the way you would have to survive. After DE5, knight E4, it is white to move and win. And it is white to move and win in incredible fashion. The winning move here is Queen C1. Which makes sense. But what's the threat? Well, the threat is that you sacrifice the rook! Rook H8! King H8 is called a deflection sacrifice. Queen H6, Rook H7, Queen F8 is checkmate. The queen has to give herself up, and you can take either with the rook or the queen. Queen C1, and in this insane position, with pieces sniping all over the board, black is defenseless. He brings the knight back to G5 to get in the way of the white attack. And, well, Nepo was not just trying to sacrifice one rook, he was trying to sacrifice the other one. Because after rook takes G5, you cannot take, as after queen G5, it's over. You don't have a way to create any attack on my king. Your pieces are scattered. Your king is threatened. Queen H5 here. Queen H8 is a devastating threat. You just have absolutely no way to stop anything. So after rook takes G5, Anish tried to use this moment to give a queen check, which I gotta tell you does look pretty scary. But now the same rook simply drops back, and Jan Nepomniachtchi is up a rook. Black goes queen H1 check. The rook blocks again. Wait a minute. Queen A8! Wait a minute, Anish just won the rook back. How did that happen? Yeah, with board geometry, he wins back the rook. But guess what? Because the black king is so exposed, all this queen needed to do was slide over one square, and she became a monster. Now she slides forward one square, and she once again becomes a monster. She takes a one-way ticket to G6. Queen H6, Queen F6 is mate incoming. Queen F7 is a threat on the rook. And if you defend yourself, the final move, the iconic move of the game, this entire game was all about white's pawns. A3 takes, F3, E4, H4, H5, G4, G5, G6. Oh my goodness, the pawn made it all the way to the board. And guess what happens at the very end, my friends? Pawn to E6. The black position is completely resilient. But this move is the end. You now deflect the rook in some direction. If the rook comes forward, you deflect the queen away from mate. Absolutely brutal. And when the rook goes here, nobody is left to defend the king. Rook H7, Rook F1, and now Rook to F7. And guess who triumphantly advances forward? Once again, the pawn. This is literally a game of inches, because Queen F7 also looks like it wins, but Knight C6, the knight returns home out of nowhere. It was on college, it was backpacking in Europe, and suddenly it stops the pawn. So the pawn on E6 must be the one to capture, and now I threaten promotion, Queen G8, and Queen H6 mate. You simply cannot stop all of them. Oh, you think you can? Check, here, Knight F4. And the threats are irresistible. The point being, if you bring the knight back to C6, I have check, but I even have Knight E6, and the pawn will be the deciding factor. And after knight to f4, Anish Giri resigned, and Jan Nepomniachtchi won the game. What a game. I mean, you don't get games like this very often. This is chess that looks like it was played simultaneously by 500 ELO players. It's chess that simultaneously looks like it was played in the 1880s when, like, no one knew any openings or had any way to analyze anything. It would take them 3 months to come up with if a position was better for white or black. But also a game played in 2024, because only in 2024 can you do stuff like this, because at a high enough depth, the engine will say, this is fine for white. And this was a game that looks like it could have been played in a span of 150 years in a range of 2,000 points, and that's what makes this game extremely fun. That's all I have for you at the moment, and wanted to share this game. Sinkfield Cup currently going on. Hope you enjoyed. Get out of here.